There is only one terrifying scenario in which America could have had an effect. If Nazi Germany had finished developing its own nuclear arsenal. Fortunately for the world, Nazi efforts to develop nuclear weapons proved to be as aimless as other Wunderwaffe initiatives, and Germany experienced a serious lack of physicists with the necessary credentials. But was it ever constructed? What was the insane weapon designed by Hitler that would have wiped out New York City? Let's find out. The origins of the America bomber. Adolf Hitler's apparent passion for watching New York City burn led to the creation of the America bomber. This is mentioned in Albert Speer's book, Spandau, The Secret Diaries. Germany attempted to utilize its military strength to suspend the Allied armies on various occasions during the Second World War. This may have become more obvious later in the dispute. The Messerschmitt Me-262 is one of Germany's remarkable machines, and the V-1 and V-2 rockets is among its lethal arsenal of weaponry. But one of the most intriguing ideas that Germany developed actually had its beginnings in the early stages of the war, in fact, even before the war. Even if it did not make any real headway until the middle of the 1940s. This was the Amerika Bomber, which translates to America Bomber in English. The America Bomber, a strategic bomber capable of flying 7,200-mile road trip across the Atlantic, was envisioned by German Air Force Chief Hermann Göring in 1942. Göring said the following earlier in 1938. I completely lack the bombers capable of round-trip's flight to New York and a 4.5-ton bomb load. I would be extremely happy to process such a bomber, which would at last stuff the mouth of arrogance across the sea. In other words, it was a German endeavor to build a long-range strategic bomber that could travel from Germany to America, notably New York City, and back, terrifying the American people. The possibility of using German nuclear weapon on board the airplane made this even more likely. Parallel to this was Germany's ambition to acquire its own heavy bomber for bombing Europe. But for a variety of reasons, this bomber was never put into production. There were numerous designs put forth, and some prototype airplanes were actually constructed. The Luftwaffe American bomber, however, was never more than a notion. But it's a fascinating tale that leaves you wondering what may have occurred if the plan had been made. Nazi Germany was pursuing an extensive variety of Wunderwaffen, wonder weapons by the end of World War II, a nearly megalomaniacal tendency to think science could make up for Nazi Germany's materially untenable position facing the combined might of the Soviet Union. The United States and the United Kingdom were reflected in the diversion of valuable production resources to so many experimental technologies. Due to the fragmented character of German military research, funds were distributed among a large number of competing projects rather than being effectively targeted for quicker and more tangible outcomes. The Junker Ju 390, Messerschmitt Me-264, and Heinkel HE 277 are three separate prototypes heavy bombers made by German manufacturers to complete the assignment. Although Me-264 and Ju 390 prototypes were flown, neither went into mass production in order to carry out intercontinental strikes with little to show for it. Nazi scientists also started constructing intercontinental ballistic missiles, the Silbervogel, a manned suborbital rocket ship. The aviation ministry upgraded its request for a bomber with a 6,800-mile range and an 8,800-pound bomb load in 1944. The Horten brothers came up with their own innovative idea in December 1944. When other German companies were unable to provide workable design concepts. A flying wing powered by 6 Jumo 004B turbojets inserted on the back of its fuselage pod. The engines utilized in those came from the German Me-262 jet fighters at the time. The wooden HO-229 flying wing jet fighter, built by Horten brothers, served as the basis for the Horten XV-III-A. Flying wings have no tail stabilizers, which makes them aerodynamically unstable, but they produce extremely little drag, enabling faster speeds. Additionally, flying wings are well situated for narrow radar cross-sections. Raymond Horten asserted that he purposefully used radar-absorbent plywood when creating the HO-229 in order to make it the stealth aircraft after the war, while testing has revealed that Horten designs did have a modestly reduced radar cross-section, which would have lessened radar detection rate There is no written proof that the Nazis were aware of the HO-229's stealth capabilities during the war. Göring still wanted this America bomber and authorized the design in February 1945, but he wanted the brothers to develop the jet by consensus with engineers from Junkers and Messerschmitt. This was even as American troops surged over the Ludendorff Bridge as Remagen into Nazi Germany. Despite the added drag, these new members wanted to make substantial vertical tail fins. Reimar Holten independently drew the HO-XV-IIIB, a brand new 35-ton flying wing jet bomber. Out of frustration at having his idea diminished, this one has a crew of 3 living within a sizable bubble canopy. 2 HES-011 turbojets were mounted on each 2 substantial non-retractable underwing landing gear fittings. This new beast allegedly had fuel stores in its wings for 27-hour round trips to strike New York. With a serving ceiling of 52,000 feet and a theoretical top speed of 528 miles per hour, it could have soared higher and traveled more quickly than the quickest piston-engine American fighters of the era. Horten, however, suggested mounting 2 30mm autocannon on the belly for defense. Göring was persuaded by the Horten brothers to select the HO-XV-IIIB model over the A model, and production was authorized to begin in the summer or fall of 1945. Nazi Germany, however, actually submitted early in May. The Horten America bomber would have been extremely challenging to intercept, due to its speed and shorter radar detection range. In reality, 2 years later, American corporation Northrop tested multiple prototype YB-49 flying wings with a range of 9,000 miles, proving the viability of the flying jet bomber concept. 6 turbo engines mounted in the rear wing of the YB-49, which was 52 meters wide, provided the aircraft's propulsion. Even though the YB-49 was never used in combat, Northrop might have taken design cues from it while creating the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, which is now in use by the US Air Force. There is scant evidence to suggest that a few raids on American communities would have had much military value. Therefore, even if the Nazis had been successful in building the HO-XV-III, their plan would have run into major difficulties. In spite of the massive bomb loads that Allied aircraft delivered, Economy Minister Albert Speer nonetheless succeeded in increasing Germany's factory output at the end of the war. It required the flight of thousands of expensive raids by hundreds of American strategic bombers stationed relatively close by in the United Kingdom. The America Bomber project was essentially abandoned when the Ju-390 and Me-264 were scrapped. There were further project proposal submissions as well. Additionally, Ardu stated that the project would benefit from their E-555 flying wing. The idea was merely a miracle project, though, and it has simply helped to distract German resources away from the more urgent issues. Additionally, the level of Allied bombing caused serious disruptions to production lines, and the Nazi nuclear development lagged so far behind the Allies that the bomber was unlikely ever to carry such weapons. It could be for the best that the project never truly took off. A nuclear-capable American bomber could have made the conflict last a little bit longer. The fate of the America bomber. So, how could a few raids by Nazi bombers have any real impact on the massive American war economy? Perhaps the Nazis erroneously anticipated a political impact. To be fair, Japan had to divert a significant amount of resources from its offensive operations to home defense as a result of the 1942 materially ineffective one-shot Doolittle raid. Göring may have thought that a few raids would prompt the US to shift its focus away from Europe or inspire the ostensibly soft democratic populace to demand American withdrawal. However, this has not only miscalculated the strength of the American will, but it also overlooked the enormous excess capacity the country possessed to wage war at home and abroad. For instance, in the final month of the war, a Nazi submarine sortie intended to deflect pressure to the US. East Coast sparred Operation Teardrop, a massive US counter-blockade that had no effect whatsoever on the US advance into Germany. The America bomber would have had an impact only if Nazi Germany had finished developing its own nuclear bombs, which is terrifyingly possible. In this situation, even 1 or 2 bombs might cause cataclysmic damage to communities along the East Coast. However, even then, such tactical assaults would have not been able to stop the massive Allied armies from destroying the Wehrmacht in Europe and would have undoubtedly sparked a nuclear retaliation by the United States. For the world's benefit, Nazi nuclear weapon development turned out to be as aimless as previous Wunderwaffe endeavors, and Germany experienced a serious scarcity of trained scientists as a result of its racial policies and politicization of academia. As a result of this, the Allies' successful destruction of heavy water facilities in Norway, the Nazis generally gave up on their plans to develop nuclear weapons in 1942 because they were too expensive. In addition to being an abominable ideology, Nazism also instilled a remarkable ability for self-delusion, as seen by Berlin's fresh intentions to produce highly advanced intercontinental jet bombers, even as columns of Allied tanks were marching far into Germany. So it comes as no surprise that the megalomaniacal antagonist of the Captain America movie pilots a jet bomber that appears to be a Horton, obviously on a mission to bomb New York City. Tell us your thoughts on the America bomber in the comment section below. Also drop a like and subscribe for more content like this. Until then, see you around.